if you were going to spend 8 hours to get one listing appointment or spend 1 hour to get 8 listing appointments, which is better? What would you rather have? Okay, this is what all of you do in this room. So I had all of you give me your numbers, Oksana, and on average, this is how we produce. Some are a little bit more efficient, but on average, we spend through direct outbound prospecting, it takes us 8 hours on average to set one listing appointment. So you just shook your head. Tell me what that meant. Is that an awareness? Yeah. Yeah.
When you break it down like that, you realize how much volume you have to do to succeed. Because that's not even met with, that's not listing signed. That's just set.
That's exactly right. We still have to meet the person, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to talk to you guys about, and this is also an average. I want to share, Cade, a different strategy that if you do it, and we talked about this on Wednesday's workshop a little bit, how do we get more efficient with what we're already doing? And so on average, what I'm going to talk about is in 1 hour of effort, you can set 8 listing appointments. There have been people, and it's so funny, just even in the story that we saw this week, there was an agent who, in the strategy we're going to talk about, Sam, how many did she set? 50 appointments in one. Look, I got his attention. It was like 56 appointments in one webinar she did. In one 1 hour webinar, she set 56 listing appointments out of the webinar. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about, right? So I'm going to talk to you guys about just how do we get more leverage from our lead generation. But by leverage, what I don't mean is like hiring more people, which we'll talk about this afternoon, I'm sure. What I don't mean is buying more leads or doing direct mail or getting referrals. Those are all great. Those are all great. I want to just talk about more or less just a different sales model. And it's a concept that I don't think our industry has ever talked about. No one really is doing it. And I am curious in your market if you guys know anybody that's coming out of this one-to-one business model, right? We call one person, we meet that person, we list that person's house, going from that, Reese, to one-to-many. So when I say that word, does that trigger anybody to somebody say, well, I hear people talk about that concept all the time. Anybody?
Tell me. The book Speak to Sell?
Yeah. I love that book. It's a great book. Anybody else have anybody in your market or maybe somebody that you follow that talks about this one-to-many? Well, you just already went. Let someone else fucking talk. I'm just kidding. Really? Tell me more. I'm just kidding.
My old team leader did it. She would do seller in-person
seminars like this.
Exactly. And she would walk through the process, what the market looks like. She'd do one once a quarter. 10 people would show up, and it was very high converting for her. She does over 100.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Just think about this for 1 second, all right? So before we dive into this even deeper. If you guys had a room full of people, consumers, buyers and sellers, in a room like this, and you spent an hour and a half or 2 hours in person interacting with them like this, do you think that there's an impact being made on a personal level? Of course, the answer is yes. Well, there's the law of reciprocity that we talk about all the time, yeah? And so when you're engaging in a room like a seminar like this, people feel like, wow, that, there's this, like you guys probably feel this way about me a little bit. You've seen me on screen. It's like, oh, this, it's like, dude, I'm just a regular old Joe. I'm the janitor here. When you guys all leave, I'll be scrubbing the floor. I'm just kidding. He's like, really? I'm like, no, I don't work here. But there's this thing that happens when you see people in a certain light. You guys can do that with consumers. And so we're taking the concept, Johnny, from like old school seminars, which aren't very scalable, and we just put them online. So just imagine doing your listing presentation to 50, 60, 80 people at one time, the amount of leverage we can get with that, yeah? All right, so let's dive into the strategy a little bit. So I'm gonna call them virtual home seller workshops because if you guys know anything about the way I like to communicate, is what don't I like to do when I'm communicating concepts to people?
What don't you like to do?
So if I'm communicating a new concept to a group, to a person I'm hiring, to an assistant, to a seller, to a buyer, knowing what I'm trying to teach you, we talk about it all the time. There's a concept that we talk about. I want to give you the answer. How don't we want to communicate?
Well, we don't want to trigger sales resistance.
Yep.
You don't want to be the mule.
Yep. So how do we want to communicate? And so what does that mean? So we talk a lot about like I give you guys the example, Alex, all the time of words I would say if I'm coaching an agent, like role playing. When you guys hear role play, I just saw all of you guys cringe, right? We don't use words like that. Why? Cade?
When we role play?
No. Like if you were communicating to a room full of sellers, let's just say you wanted to talk about an open house strategy that really wanted to captivate the audience. You really wanted to captivate the audience. What word would you not use?
I mean, common words that everyone else is using when they're talking about open house. Yeah.
So what word would you not use?
Open house.
There you go. That's the point, right? So as I'm doing this, I'm going to call it a workshop just because the consumer may have some preconceived things of being on a webinar before and what that is and what that isn't. So I'm going to stay away from just using words that people think they know what they are and they don't, right? So that's just the point. As I communicate with everything, you seem confused.
I'm just wondering how you, because you talk a lot about using strategic vagueness as a way of
That's right.
positioning yourself as the logician.
Mm-hmm.
But on the contrary, getting across helpful information in marketing is all about being clear, concise, and having a good fun.
Mm-hmm.
Those seem kind of contrary. Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah.
Strategically vague while still giving helpful information.
Yep. So I communicate in a way where I know it's exactly what the person would want, right? So like, let me give you an example. Instead of saying, let's use the role play thing. So instead of saying, Alex, you need to role play to get better with your sales skills, right? Instead of saying that, I would say there are things that you can do to increase your skill set in a very short amount of time if you put yourself in a position to perform. What do I mean by that specifically? It's how do we recreate reality in a world where you're not talking directly to a consumer, but you're dealing with a colleague so that you guys are actually practicing before you perform. So as an example, instead of reading the script to yourself or chanting the script in the mirror, you might call Johnny Wells in Austin and you might go through one of the objections that you hear all the time that's tripping you up, and you guys may practice that for the next 7 days until you're really, really comfortable the next time that you hear that. So that the next time you're on the phone with Joanne, who's being a bitch or whatever, you know how to handle that. Yes? Does that make sense? So that's how I might explain it, where I do it in a way where if I just say, you need to role play every day, it's not that impactful, right? So the point is, and I don't want to go too deep on that, it's the reason why I just use the word workshop instead of webinar. But I want to your point, we're all talking about webinars. Fair? We good? Okay. So typically they're 60 to 90 minutes. And here's what we know, that if you can, we talk a lot about points of influence. Points of influence, who knows what I mean by that? You just shook your head up and down, so what does it mean?
Points of influence are the things you say that guide someone's train of thought in the direction that you want it to go. Right?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I think you just came up with that out of thin air. That was a pretty good job. Give him a round of applause. That was good. So I talk about points of influence, Johnny, in the listing presentation all the time. These are points where we communicate to a seller where it's new information for them and the impact that it makes, right? So going back to the point, Alex, we're just talking about, that's how we have to communicate. So when I say points of influence, what happens when you educate somebody and you're teaching them things for the very first time, concepts that they don't know about, the law of reciprocity increases. So when we get into this webinar, instead of teaching things, Oksana, like, so what is the webinar about? The webinar is educating somebody on how to do two things: get the most for their home in the least amount of time. So going back to what we're talking about, what we're not going to do is talk about concepts that the consumer thinks, Cade, they already know about, okay? So you'll see this in just a second, but that's how we want to communicate. That presentation does not need to be any more than 90 minutes. It needs to be about 60 minutes of actual education, and then the last 30 minutes is open Q&A. The open Q&A is where you're going to get the most appointments booked, by the way. Okay, so as we're engaging in things like this is where the impact is being made, Ian, and as you're presenting, as I'm doing right now, you're not going to just sit and talk at an audience for 60 minutes. I want you guys to pay attention to how I'm communicating with all of you, because I'm demonstrating how you would do this online. Like, if I were to ask somebody a question, you've seen me do it already a few different times. What we never, ever, ever do, what you guys haven't seen me do, is ask a question to The audience. How did I ask questions? That's right. So I always point on somebody, their butthole puckers up a little bit, they get a little nervous, like, fuck, what's this guy gonna say, That's the point. So we want to have a little bit of healthy anxiety in the audience. It's like, you never know, when he's gonna call on you. What did I just say? Exactly, right? I'm just kidding. So that's the point. When you're presenting, how to be more captivating is by making sure, like he's like, shit, I got to dial in. I got to turn off Facebook, right? That's the point. That's what we want to do, all right? So that's the what. We good on that? Okay. Where am I at? So why does this work? For the homeowner, think about this. Think about how much friction there is with a homeowner, Sam, who you call out of the blue randomly and ask to go into their fucking house. You know what I mean? Like, that's a lot of friction from the consumer standpoint, that the only appointments you're getting are people that are really, really at the bottom of that funnel, right? These are people who, we've always said, not all the time, Johnny, to be fair, but if people are going to invite you into their home, they have to have a certain level of interest, but we're missing a huge, huge opportunity. So it's low friction for a consumer who has thoughts on moving, for them to engage and learn information. Because here's the thing. What's the offer, Sam, that's being made most of the time when we go and meet with a homeowner? If you called an expired listing, what's the offer that's being made to get into their living room?
I'm going to show you something different than what other agents have shown you so far.
Yeah, and what's the perception of that the consumer has, though, Oksana, when an offer like that is being made? What do they hear? No matter how good you are at saying it, what's really happening in the consumer's mind when they say, yes, come over to my house? What's their perception of what's going to happen?
That you're going to try to sell them to.
That's it. That's what's going on. Everyone agree with that? Anyone see that differently? Okay, so that's very, very high friction. What's being offered here? Well, we'll talk about that in just a minute, but what's being offered here is information that helps who? Them. It's a selfish act to go to a webinar. I'm going to this webinar for me. If I'm meeting with Sam, I'm going to be pitched to do something with them. Yes? Reese, that makes sense? You with me on that? Okay, so that's number one. Number two, it closes a curiosity loop. So when we talk about positioning, Alex, you're going to see how we position this in a second. But I want you to think about who in here is familiar with Russell Brunson? Okay, so who is he?
ClickFunnels guy.
Yeah, so he owns ClickFunnels, okay? He's probably, I don't know, Ben, would you say he's probably one of the best people when it comes to copywriting and positioning? He's the best at it, okay? And so the reason I bring him up is when we talk about positioning and we talk about closing curiosity loops, the way that we're going to position this is going to answer questions that we pose in our messaging to get people to come to the event. Like, one of the questions would be, how is it possible that two neighbors that have the identical same home, one's able to sell for $50,000 more than the other person? How is that possible? This would be as an example, leading up to the event, Johnny, might be one of the stories that you have on your Instagram that would get people to click. So there's a whole campaign we're going to talk about on how to get traffic to the webinar. This might be one of the questions that we ask, that the consumer says, well, my curiosity gets me to go to the webinar. I want the answer to that question. And there's multiple questions that we're going to ask during the promotion of the webinar that gets people to want to go to answer the questions. Sam, you tracking?
I'm tracking. I just want to see it all come together before I start, running off with a bunch of questions.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Now, for you guys, this is really, really simple. Yeah, that is good. It's leverage. This is the biggest thing is there anybody that doesn't understand the concept of one-to-many and why it brings so much leverage? Like, it makes sense if you're going to spend an hour. If I could present to 150 people, I would much rather do that with my time, Sam, than present to one person, right?
I got a question. You can see it in my
Go ahead.
So what I'm thinking is this reminds me a lot of these first-time homebuyer seminars that a lot of realtors do. But when I see most realtors do that, it doesn't work because they don't stick with it like realtors with most stuff. So how is this going to work better for us than something like that?
I'm going to show you in just a second. How about that? Yeah, we'll get into. I promise. So that's one of the questions, right? That would be a loop now that you've created. Okay, everyone wants to know the answer. Fair? So these are the loops that we're always trying to create as we're communicating with people, okay? So leverage is really easy, but I want to talk about positioning for a second. This is what you don't get. Calling people and going to their house and doing a listing presentation. Why do you have no positioning like that whatsoever? I'm going to ask, and I just broke my own rule. Oksana, I'm going to put you on the spot. So positioning, okay? Why don't we get a lot of positioning the way in which most of us are building our business right now?
Because we're not probably putting in the effort of doing that.
A little bit. Johnny, what do you think? You got it. Bingo. This is very, very different. So who doesn't get that? So Kate, I saw you shaking up your head. You don't get it?
No.
All right. You don't get it?
No.
Oh.
I get that. Yeah. I get
So I want you to think of.
You're saying, do I get people coming to me wanting to
No, exactly right.
all the guys in the room
Yeah.
understand it.
That's right. That's exactly right. So it's you are the one pursuing the opportunity, which lowers your status and lowers your positioning. Think about this on the inverse, right? You have an offer that people can take or not take. They decide to come to the thing on their own accord, number one. Number two, they just spent 60 minutes with you. Like our bank accounts with each other, from an emotional standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, will be filled when you leave here today. This is me making a deposit in this relationship, okay? The same thing happens when you do any type of educational event. You with me? So when you spend 60 to 90 minutes with somebody, they almost look at you like you're a celebrity, right? That's what's going on. And so the whole idea around conversion, there is no listing appointment. When you spend 60 to 90 minutes, Oksana, with somebody on a webinar, and they say, Oksana, here's what happens. You follow up with a webinar lead, and you say, hey, this is Oksana from X. Oh, I know who you are. I know who you are. That was great. I can't believe all the stuff we loved it, Oksana. My husband and I watched it was great. This is how they start to respond. They treat you, and you're like, holy shit, this is a lot different than how expired listings treat me when I call their asses, right? They almost put you on a pedestal because you don't understand the deposit that's being made with this person while they're watching you through the camera, right? At home, there's a huge, huge deposit being made. So when we talk about positioning, this gives you that opportunity. You guys with me on this? Okay. So let's keep rocking. Oh, that one's backwards and upside down. That's how it goes sometimes. So it's what happens when my kids mess with things. Let's see. It is my kid's fault. So how? All right. So here's the thing too. If I were to teach you this whole, yeah, you can take a picture of that. If I were to teach you this whole webinar thing, we'd be here until like Friday afternoon. So just as a precursor, Sam, because I know you like to get into the weeds of things. For those of you that like want to execute on this, for the next couple of weeks with Inside Our Boardroom, we're going to be like dialing in the whole entire system, like how to do the presentation, the slides, all. Okay, so I'm going to keep it fairly high level. Is that all right? Okay, so let's walk through this. So step one, I'm going to go deep on these, but from a framework, we need to build the audience, which you guys are building the audience through your direct outbound efforts right now, okay? So we're not talking, and this is the benefit you guys have, we're not talking about running ads to the webinar right now, okay? We're talking about building the audience that you already have created through your effort, okay? So these are the databases that you guys have already built. So audience goes to generating a lead. I'll tell you how we're going to do that in just a second. We do the presentation, we make the offer, and then we follow up. All right, so let's go through each one of these at a deeper level. All right, so okay, so building the audience. Here's the other thing. We want quality over quantity here. You're not trying to be the next Alex Hormozy doing a book launch. You don't need 1 million people at the webinar, okay? You just don't. I mean, how much money do you make when you sell a house? You make a shitload, don't you? 30 grand? More. Yeah, Cade, you make the same? Ian, tell them what you make when you sell a house in Michigan.
I sold a house 2 weeks ago and I made $3 grand off.
Yeah, see how much work we have to do here, you bastards? Yeah. Here, Alex wouldn't even get out of bed for that. Here.
Like 3 weeks longer to close too. Like, these things aren't always easy too. You know, when you get closer to Detroit.
It's brutal. It's brutal. It's brutal. Okay, so but the point is, I mean, if you had 40 people on a webinar, and you had, again, on the average, 8 listing appointments come from that, that is a success. Okay, so I don't want you guys, sometimes social media screws up the small business owner, Reese. It's like you do this webinar and you have 42 people there, and you're like, dude, I'm a fucking loser. It's like, no, that's all you need. You're not, we're not trying to get millions and millions of people there, okay?
The best perspective is the amount of people in a room. So whenever you get views, translate it to what would 42 people in a room feel like, look like, and then it just levels everything.
Great.
Like, oh, I only got 1,000 views on that reel. Think about a room full of 1,000 people and how that would feel.
Such a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we had, I can't believe not one of you was at our summit last year. We had, I think, 350 people, and I don't know how your perspective of that is, but 350 people in a room is a freaking lot of people. And then we did our casino night. It was like, I don't know, it felt like 2,000 people, 10,000 people you could have told me there. So don't get caught up in the vanity metrics of this thing, okay? You're not trying to be famous. You're trying to be rich, I hope. Like, we just want the money. I don't know, maybe some of you are more interested in being famous than rich, but we want the money, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go way deeper into this in the weeks ahead, but this is really, really simple, all right? So 30 days prior to the webinar, Johnny, we can just simply start to emailing our list, right? So we get an email out there with a link to, all this is gonna be built on Zoom webinar, by the way. You don't need ClickFunnels, okay? You don't need any fancy funnel builder. All of it could be built on Zoom webinar.
When you say all of it, what do you mean?
Yeah, so the opt-in pages, the follow-up sequences, the reminders, the actual presentation itself, all of it is on Zoom webinar. They do a really good job now. The actual calendar itself, they can book appointments on your calendar all through webinar.
Input to closing them on a signed listing is all through one text app.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you don't need to, yeah, you can run this entire thing on Zoom webinar now. You don't need Webinar Jam, you don't need ClickFunnels, you don't need ActiveCampaign, you don't need any of that stuff. Yeah, you don't need any of it. Yeah. Okay, so this all starts with the list that you guys have all built. I'm curious, who has more than 250 people on your email list? Okay, keep your hand up. Who's got more than 500? Who has more than 1,000? 2,000? 3,000? How many you got?
Mine is just a little shy of 3,000.
And all of those people got, bless those people's souls, they had to talk to you to get in there. Jeez, I feel bad for those people. Every single one of those people had to have a conversation with you?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. So that's great. And how long did it take to build that?
I am just a little over 2 years at this point.
That's amazing. You got a database of 3,000 people. So this is going to start with an email to those folks.
As soon as you started talking about it, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
Because I already send a video to all of the people that, all of my weekly emails
Yeah.
are also come with a video summary.
Which is amazing. So I'll just give you the best subject line to get this thing to open on the first email, and it's going to be, Alex, can you meet this week? That's I mean, there's a couple different options, but the last time I just did, can you meet this week? I say, what are you doing on Thursday at 6 o'clock? So the other thing is you can leverage a Facebook event, because I still want you guys to have the opportunity to get in front of your sphere of influence too. So this is getting in front of our database of cold prospects that we've built, and a way to convert the sphere without having to call them, Sam, and ask them for anything. All right? So most of you have a Facebook or Instagram, I would hope. So we're going to leverage a Facebook event. Okay? I'm not going to teach you how to build that this second. And then we can do an Instagram post. That's all in the first week. Week 2, we're going to email the list again. Every week we're going to email the list asking them to come to the event.
Quick question. For this campaign, are you replacing your weekly?
You got it. Yep, 100%.
You're not doing your regular one.
This is it. Yep, because you can run these as much as you want. You can run them as much as you want, but this is a 30-day action plan, so you need 4 emails to go out to the list. You guys, the reason I used BombBomb in some of our messaging to you guys is I wanted you to see some of this, but you can use BombBomb to text, to send really good video text to your list as well through a texting platform. So you guys, when I sent some of those text messages to you, I just wanted you to start to see that. That's why I used BombBomb for this moment right here. Is it comes across so much easier than, well, number one, you can't just video text 1,000 people, right, at a click of a button like you can on these other platforms. So you can send a video text to your list. Then we're going to start doing a Facebook Live, Instagram Live, just inviting people. Again, we'll talk about scripts and what to say in the weeks ahead. Week 3, we're going to email the list. This is where I would drop a voicemail using Slide Broadcast, dropping a voicemail into the entire database. You guys all familiar with that? Yep. Okay.
It's voicemail drop at mass
I've never
scale.
done it, but I've heard.
Yeah, so this is, once you have the opt-in, there's some compliance things here, but they're already in the database. So this is different than just dropping a voicemail. I wouldn't recommend this any longer. Like, we used to do this with circle prospecting a lot. We would load up a list of 10,000 people. I'd leave a voicemail and boom, get into all their voicemails. Yeah.
What SMS platform do you use to send the texts?
So you can use Follow Up Boss, right, if that's what you use, or Textly.
I just hate that it's green.
Hey, what?
I hate that it's a green text.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah, well, you could text right out of BombBomb too. You could text right out of BombBomb too. That's why, from a video perspective, it's a really, really good platform. It's $30, so it's a really good option.
I've gone down a couple rabbit holes of mass sending the iMessages. The big bottlenecks are you can only send 75 per day on the different ones you can buy. You can pay like $1,000 a month to send blue text out of Follow Up Boss.
Yeah.
But there's also the best way I've seen it executed is people with Go High Level, and they're plugging in that software to Go High Level with like 90 lines and doing 75 each.
Yeah. Anybody here on Go High Level as for CRM? You are, okay. So we
Not
are.
not for CRM, we're on Follow Up Boss. But
Okay, we just switched over to Go High Level, but it's a whole nother tech thing.
My phone's in my backpack. I'm not more important, but I gotta go potty.
Go. Yeah, you guys want to take a quick breather? Yeah, let's just take, well, I don't want you to miss anything. Go ahead, go to the bathroom. Let's just take 3 minutes. This is, all right, so again, just keeping this high level, again, we're going to get into the weeds of this for those of you that want to get into this world of selling one-to-many in the next couple of weeks. Today, I just want to introduce you to the concept. Is that fair? You guys good with that? Okay, so every week and every day of the week, there's going to be some stuff you got to do to get some people to come to the webinar. That is brutal. Like, you go into the room, it's like, all right, I'm here. It's like crickets, right? So we want people there. So there's an action plan that you're going to go through, Kareem, every day and doing things. If you want to learn more about that here soon, I'll have a daily action plan that you guys follow for that 30 days. All right? So let's just keep this moving for the sake of time. Is this 9? No, it's not 9. Shoot. Okay. So that's all right. Upside down. There we go. Yeah. All right. So the lead. Okay. So technically, because the way that we're doing this, the way I'm having you guys do this, you already have the lead in the database. What I'm referring to specifically is who in this database of 3,000, 2,000, 500, whatever is in the database, Ian, who in there is the closest to transacting. That's what I mean by lead here, is so that when we go and put a new information for this person to engage with us, who in this database, instead of, Sam, we talked about this on the boardroom call last week, calling every single person one at a time. Hey, checking in, what's going on, doing a follow-up call. It's like we can do our messaging one-to-many through leveraging email, text, voicemail drops, Instagram stories, etc., and see who is in here that is going to engage with this. So the opt-in, okay? So in our world of marketing, when somebody opts in, that shows a sign of interest. Yes? Okay. So we're gonna get all these messaging out to your database, Reese. The people who opt in, we send them to what we call a squeeze page, right? So Terry, what do we do on the squeeze page? Why do we do it?
We get their information, we qualify what they're looking for so they can disqualify themselves from our process.
That's right. He nailed it, right? So everything that we send out, whether that be an Instagram story, Alex, an email, a voicemail drop, we are going to send them to a squeeze page on Zoom. You don't need to send them to ClickFunnels anymore. On Zoom to capture that interest. You guys with me? All that makes sense? Okay. This list right here are our, what I would call level 1 leads. All right? So that's a really good opportunity for you. However, we're going to do some things that are going to be even more to find out how do we get a level 2 lead, which I'll talk about in just a second. So the next step is to present. Now, this is the meat and potatoes. We're not going to get all through this, but the way that we position this is through some of the questions that we talked about, through some of the opening of curiosity loops. I just renamed this the Secret Home Selling Playbook. This is copy that I think is really, really important. This is what you want to take a picture of if you're going to take a picture of anything. Like this bottom part is an example I wanted to show you guys of a curiosity loop that you would open with copy. Not your words, but copy you would write. So can you read that for everybody? Can you see that? We just read it out loud.
Revealed to the public for the first time ever the secrets to selling your home faster and for more money than you ever thought possible.
I get a little more downswing and emphasis now.
There you go. That's right. That's so good. So listen, this copy, again, opens up a loop, okay? This is you speaking like the magician. You might hear that and say, oh, that's not a big deal. I'm telling you, in the world of marketing and copy and converting people on the internet, like you have to be really good at using words. So we open up a really, really, really big loop to the homeowner that you're talking to, which says, revealed to the public for the very first time ever. I even like the word ever on there a lot, okay? So, and then we go on and on. There's more on this squeeze page that we're going to put on there, Alex. But you need to communicate. You cannot send traffic to a landing page and say, I'm doing a webinar Thursday night. Come join me. Your opt-in is going to be brutal. Like no one Reese is going to they're not going to engage. All right. So there has to be copy that entices them to take action. How do we do it? We talked about it a couple different times. We open a what? That's how we have to use the copy. This is how you have to do it in your Instagram story, your emails, all your messaging must constantly be opening a new loop, a new loop, a new loop, a new loop. On every single message you put out to get people to come to this thing must open another loop. Do you have a question?
This copy goes on the squeeze page.
Yeah, there's going to be more too. But yes, this is just an example of how we would open loops to get people to say, well, regardless, I want to know the answer. I want to know what it is, right? The same way you guys respond when I say to you, when I open up a loop, I'm like, hey, there's an appointment setting script that's working better than anything we've seen so far. That's a loop. I get your attention. I get you to lean in. John, you want to give it to him? I'm just kidding. So the new script. I'm just kidding. There's no new script. But the point is, right, that's what we're doing when we communicate that way. With me, Cade? Cade's ready for a nap. Just hang in there with me. Hang in there with me. All right. He's from California. It's like, what, 3 a.m. there?
It's because he slept on an iron board.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay. Now, this is where we get what we call level 2 leads. This is where we actually get people to book on your calendar in the webinar. Okay? And this is where we actually make the offer. I'm not going to teach you the whole science and art of selling one-to-many in a webinar in this setting, which we will. But I'll just give you a couple little takeaways for those of you that are high executors who go and do this soon. When you are on a webinar, who here has ever been on a webinar? Reese, never been on one? Never been on one?
The one that you created.
Okay. So everyone else been on a webinar? Okay. So from the consumer's perspective, anybody that's been on a webinar, well, there's something called like consumer sophistication. And with homeowners, luckily for you guys, it's really low. It's super, super low. Now, I don't say this to like get one over on the consumer. I only say that, like, let me give you an example. My consumer sophistication in the marketing world is extremely high. Why? Because I have been through every marketing funnel. I've been through every coach. I've spent millions and millions of dollars on personal development. I have invested in many, many different things. So my sophistication for this funnel or that offer, like you and I, we just know what's happening, right? But for a lot of people, they don't get it. You're smiling. Tell me what resonated.
So in the previous world, I did these webinars for basically selling laser equipment, right? Where
Sure.
Lasers shooting from planes and GPS satellites circling through the air. I'm just thinking through right now, like we got hundreds of people to show up to that.
Yeah.
And that's like the tiniest percentile of a percentile of users for a thing in the world.
most people have a fucking house. So
Yeah.
there's like the entry to this is so much lower.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, when we talk about market sophistication, it's if you were to survey all the homeowners in Austin, Texas, and ask how many of them have ever in their life been to a home seller workshop, dude, you would have crickets. Nobody. But you ask a marketer, how many webinars have you been on? Like me, I'm a marketer. I've been on thousands of webinars. So the point is, how you open up this webinar to a consumer base that has very, very low sophistication, it's very easy to sell one-to-many because they're not used to this medium. Most of the people coming to your first webinar, Ian, have never been on a home seller webinar ever, okay? So the way that we do this, the little best practice is...
Is it also just because they don't do this every 15 years?
Yeah,
right?
that's...
part of the low
Yes.
sophistication.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a good point too, right? The homeowner hasn't sold a house, if ever, right? You can niche down on these webinars too, by the way. It doesn't have to be to the general home seller. It could be to the first time move up, or to a probate, or to old expireds. That you could tailor the webinar to a specific target audience with inside your database too if you want. Okay, but the best practice here when you open up a webinar is to get their permission to make the offer up front. I don't know if you ever taught this. It's the thing that has risen conversion on webinars like crazy. Because traditional webinar selling is you educate, pitch at the end, and by then your audience has like dropped off like crazy. The offer up front, the permission to make an offer up front, is a curiosity loop in itself. So people want to hear the offer up front. So at the front of the webinar, you know, we introduce ourselves and we tee up some more curiosity loops, and it's like, hey, and I'll be up front. At the end, I've got something to offer you that I've never done before. I've never, ever made this offer, ever. You guys are going to be the first ones to see it. The people, whether they're going to take you up on the offer or not, stay because they want to hear the offer. People love to buy. They just hate to be sold, right? You guys have heard that a million times. All right. So the offer, what is the offer that we're going to make? This is the thing I want to talk to this group about too. I want us to think about how do we make our offers more enticing? Even if I'm on the phone with an expired listing, we've been talking about this lately, how do I make the offer more enticing versus let me come over and pitch you on listing your house with me? So these are early tests, but like we're seeing a lot of good success talking about doing this, answering the question to the consumer, like when's the best time to sell? Everyone thinks about that in terms of what? Most of the time. When you think about when's the best time to sell, when you say that, when you think about that, what are they thinking about?
I didn't hear your question.
The question is, if you were to ask the question or think about the answer to when is the best time to sell, what do most people think the answer lies in?
In my market, most people think it's the spring.
So that's my point. They think it's a time period.
Right. But in reality, it's when they're the most motivated to do it, when they have pain.
That's part of it. It's part of it. That's why this offer is so enticing. Because you that are going to make this offer, which I'm going to tell you, do I have your attention now? What I'm about to say? The real answer to when is the best time to sell is when supply is very low and demand is. That's the offer. Isn't that an interesting way of thinking about what we do? To answer the question to an expired listing or to anybody is to say, well, it might not make sense to do this based on what the current supply demand looks like in your market. So John, if you want, I'd be happy. A lot of people will say, well, you know what, Brandon, that's a good point. Now we plant this seed, okay? So for what it is, if anybody here trained in NLP? Okay. So there's a point in NLP where we can, essentially manipulate people, neuro-linguistic programming. So we can manipulate people's subconscious mind by the language we use, okay? So this is what we're talking about. Oh, they like that. Yeah, okay. So this is where language like this comes right out of NLP. Like, I have people ask me all the time, you know what, Brandon, that's a good point. I would love to know what the supply and demand looks like on my house so that I can determine whether or not I should put my house on the market now or I should wait until supply goes down. Was that their idea? No, I planted that into their brain and made it their idea, such that they want it. They have no idea what it is, but I made it their idea. Okay, it's a deep concept that I gave you for the first time. Just think about that for a little while. Let that set in. Huh? I mean, there's millions of NLP books.
Just watch Inception.
There you go. Yeah, watch Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah. Okay. So when we talk about making an offer, the offer that I created was to do a home sale scorecard. How many of you guys are making that offer to people now? Nobody, right? How many of you ever heard of that before? You heard of it? I just made it up like 2 days ago. Fuck, how'd you hear that? You must have been in my basement.
YouTube ads.
There you go. So I thought I made it up. But anyway, so when we are on a webinar, this is the offer we would make at the end. And it includes 4 things: a supply and demand audit, a competitive competition analysis, home value report, and a home sale actual score, giving them a score to say, hey, does it make sense for you to do something now, or does it make sense to do something later? Through this, you're building more reciprocity. You're positioning yourself in the mind of the prospect in such a way that no realtor ever has. Because you're using, and you're talking about, and you're communicating in a way that no one's ever done to them. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is the offer that we make at the end. So now imagine you spent 30 minutes educating them on price bracketing, supply and demand, and you make that a big deal. All the things that we would do in a listing appointment, but we communicate at a much higher level. And then at the end, we offer to do one of these for them. This is where people on the webinar you give them a link, they book right on your calendar, or you can do a phone consultation. We don't need to get into the weeds of that right now. I'll teach you guys how to do that later. But that's the offer that's being made. Can you guys conceptualize that? Yeah? Okay.
What is the home sales score?
This is you coming up with the score as a recommendation whether or not they should do something right now based on how likely it is that they could get their full value of their home or more. So we would do that through supply and demand and everything you guys do to prep a home to hit the market.
Do you have a template for this?
Nope, because I just made it up. So I'll get you guys one. No? Yeah. So this is what I'm saying is I just created this offer, right? So there is no template because we just created it. So when you say template for like how to come up with, what's an 8 out of 10 or what's a 9 out of 10? Is that what you mean?
Like your listing presentation, you gave us a PDF template so we can...
Yep. So I'm going to make it for you in the next couple of weeks. You're going to have it. Okay? So on how to actually come up with this.
It's kind of, it reminds me of the moat strategy.
That's right.
I don't know if anybody...
Explain it.
Cody Sanchez.
Hey, can you give, where's that mic at? So, yeah, we kind of missed that. So moving forward rest of the day so we don't mess this up. If you're talking, we'll get this, you guys can just grab this little mic. Dialed in. Thanks, Sam. You're the man. Explain.
So the moat strategy is how oftentimes businesses are evaluated. So it gets scored, each of the letters represents something, I can't remember exactly what they are, but it gets scored from 1 to 10, and if the business scores 30 or more, it's a funded business, meaning that it has the potential for scale and it's a great business to buy. If it's between 20 and 30, it's a fixed business, meaning something that you can buy and potentially scale later on. And if it scores less than 20, it's basically flee it. In other words, you run away from it. It's not a worthy business to purchase. So same concept.
That's right. And I'm creating this, Alex, in a way that's going to help you guys convert more business because we're going to make this very objective based on what their current supply demand looks like, what their competition looks like right now. If they've got 3 or 4 homes that are sexy as shit, it's like, I don't know, that's going to lower your score for sure. Right? If there's nothing on the market, score goes up. Right? We'll make it a template or a framework for you to follow that makes it objective to say, well, we have a 97% confidence score in your ability to get your full home's value or more right now based on these factors. Guess what we're not doing to the seller? Guess what do sellers believe you when you say it? No, they never believe what you say. What do we have to do instead of tell? Show. This is the opportunity. This is the offer that gets us to make that show. Does that make sense? Okay. Good on the offer. Conceptualize the offer. Yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Alex Hormozi and what
Who's that? I'm just kidding.
his books are all based on the offer. Like
Yes.
if your offer is incredible and you're in a great market, you have all the chances of, even if your skills are subpar,
Yeah.
you have all the chances of, creating an incredible business.
Yeah, and so Alex and I are in the same mastermind together, and like this is all I think about. So all I think about is how do we position ourselves to be completely different than any other realtor. So this is what I obsess about every day. It's like using different words and like making different offers and like doing things that nobody in your market can compete with because they're not thinking about this. You know where they get the information from? Inside of the real estate industry. You know where you should be getting your information from? Outside of the real estate industry. Like this is probably my superpower, Ben, would you agree? Yeah. I spend all of my time, that's why I'm bringing all this shit to you guys for the last 10 years. It's because like I don't spend any time learning from people inside of the industry because I don't want to be the next mule. And in order to be better, you must first be different. Right? That's what we're doing here. Okay, so we make this offer at the end. A certain percentage of these people, about 20% for the analyticals, will book right there on the webinar. They'll just take you up on the offer and they'll book the consultation. They'll book to say, yes, I want the scorecard on my house. I want this analysis done on my house. So you'll get to about 20% of those people. The other 80% that don't do that, we're going to follow up with them. How do we know who they are? What was the step that we did this?
They're going to do the self-identifying opt-in at the beginning.
Bang, bang. Okay, squeeze page. So all of those people, you know who inside the database we need to follow up with because they've opted in. Whether they show up to the webinar or not is irrelevant. They've raised their hand. They don't even need to show up, Oksana. They just opt in. Bang, you might get 67 people on your email list to opt in. Maybe you get 33 to show up, and maybe you get 7 to book. That means you got 22 level 1 leads to follow up with. I don't know if I did the math right, but something like that. People opted in. Those are the people you follow up with. All right? Yes. And that's the last step is to follow up.
Webinar, and I've been thinking about this a lot. Somebody put it in school about like basically charging for consultations because it puts you in a position of leverage.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? Number one, and number two, if not charging for this, how can we present like normally I charge for this, but for those people that book on this webinar, I'll come out and do it for free.
So good. So good. You already have the next page of the book. So when we get into this offer creation and positioning of the offer, one, we can charge for the webinar. We're not there yet. We're going to keep the webinar free for now, but then you make the offer, right? You charge for the offer and you make it a really, really small, insignificant amount that gets credited back to them on the sale of their home. Right? Yeah. So now you could charge, you just say, listen, normally banks, who knows what a BPO is?
Bank price.
Yeah. So banks pay realtors such as yourself to do a CMA on properties they own, yeah? So they charge $500. So typically, you could say in a webinar, banks typically pay me somewhere between $350 and $500 to do these. Today, as a special, it's going to be $99, right? And then you can, but it gets better, right? And it's like, this gets credited back. There's a lot of things that are going to go into that offer. But yeah, Sam, you're nailing it. You're nailing it.